All right, let's take a look at what's trending on Google a day after the Democratic National Convention. You'll notice that immigration and abortion are up at the top. You got race issues, and you've got down as you go toward the bottom, same-sex marriage and education policy and that sort of thing. Well, what does the Bible have to say about this? I think once again we should look at Matthew 22. Now, we already looked at this passage when we were talking about the Republican National Convention. And Jesus said to the Pharisees, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And then he says the second thing is you need to love your neighbor. And I think from the perspective of a Democrat, they would say, well, we're all about loving your neighbor. All of those issues, we want to help the immigrants. We want to allow a woman to have pro-choice. We want to tell people that anyone that wants to can get married. And that's all well and fine. And certainly from a certain perspective, I think there are a lot of people who vote Democratic who truly have a desire to love your neighbor. Now, we always have exceptions, obviously, on both sides of the aisle, but I think you could make that argument from the Democratic point of view. But I think the real question, if you're a Democrat and if you want to be biblically minded, if you want to have a biblical worldview, the real question you have to ask is, well, what about loving God? And specifically what I mean by this is, what about respecting and trusting God's perspective, a biblical worldview? Going back to those issues, especially something like abortion or same-sex marriage. The question is, well, what does God's word say? What does it mean for me to love God? What does it mean for me to honor God? As a Democrat, what does it mean for me to love God first and love people second? I think that is one of the most important questions for you if you're voting Democratic and if you're considering the issues in the political arena this year. Go back and read Matthew 22 and also check out some of the links below where I'll give you some information on those issues if you want to know a biblical worldview on the topic. Talk about it